So in this video, I wanted to touch base a little bit on using railroad ties for like your floor frame foundation. I don't know if I'm calling it the correct thing. But yeah, this was interesting. So we knew we wanted to use railroad ties because they're sturdy, they're made to last, and they were abundant to us, right? We live near a railroad. Everyone has them collected. They're sold at stores. You know, it was just an abundant material. And on the road up at the neighbors, they had a whole bunch of them that were just like overgrowing. So I had to suck my pride up a little bit, call the neighbor, see if they were still going to use them or planning on using them anytime in the near future, and if they'd be interested in allowing us to have 15 of them. And they had this really big stack. And the man was really kind and, yeah, let us grab what we need. It didn't deplenish them. They still have plenty enough to use if they need to go. But a couple things with railroad ties is, one, the weight in trying to move them, use them, get them to location, and get them up. So we're going to talk about that, and you'll see that here in a minute. And then two is everyone's concern of the creosote. So as far as environmental things go, it kind of like sucks, right, that these things are full with like a hazardous chemical. But when we think about it, they've already been produced, they've already been created. These have been laying on the ground for at least 10 years, probably. Like I said, they were like completely covered up. And some of them, I'll show you over here in a minute, are growing trees out of them. You know, so environmentally, it's like, yeah, there's a chemical in it, but like we've already been there. So in order to like go buy all these, I guess they'd be 6x6s if we weren't using these railroad ties, because they're like 7x9. Financially for us is what I would call an energy leak. And then two, it's just like reproduction of new materials that we already have access to. So I would call that an energy leak as far as sustainability goes. Plus we know these are gonna like last because they're built to last. Like they're built to have these trains moving through them to hold these tracks down. So that was one of our reasons for doing it. Two, we just kind of love the way that they look when they're aged, and they've been through the elements. And it was important to us to get some sort of earthy look, if we weren't going to be able to do our earthship, or if we weren't going to be able to do the cordwood. So we love the way that the railroad ties look. Let's talk about the weight here. So these things are heavy. Justin and I have moved them with just the two of us. We don't have heavy machinery except for the truck. And then we had a buddy come over, and Justin and him moved some too. So two people were able to move it safely. Justin's a stickler for lifting correctly and stuff to preserve our bodies. The last thing that we want to do is build something and then have back injuries or body injuries that prevent us from enjoying this, right? So the other thing of concern, right, is the chemical, like creosote. And so, you know, science behind it, and it's like science is great, but then it's also like science is paid off, so who the hell knows. But supposedly, as long as the timbers are 10 years old, then the leakage is less than like a fresh creosote log. The big thing with this is too, knowing that using these, we are going to have a subfloor over top of this. So it's not like these are going to be in our living space per se. They will be below us. But so hopefully like any soakage or any leakage or whatnot will come down to the ground. Now, that's environmental pollution, right? But it is rated for after 10 years that it will be okay. They're sitting on the ground wherever. Like if they're going to be at the rail yard, they're sitting on the ground. People have bought them from stores. They're sitting on the ground. But the thing is 10 years. And honestly, the ones that are sold at stores that look really, really good are 10 years. And so these are probably way older, 20 years or so. So I say that, but they're really sturdy and strong. We've only had a few that might have been questionable, and we just chose not to use them. And I did mention to you all, like, you know, trees growing out of some of them. Like that one's got like a little maple tree or oak tree started. So life does continue, so we're not super worried about that. At this point, it was more sustainable for us to utilize what was near us and around than to super hyper focus on the chemical. When it comes to like chemicals and things like that, of course we need to reduce them. But I always like to mention, you know, Teflon. Like, there's not a water source on the planet that hasn't been affected by Teflon. So when we bathe or drink or cook or anything, we have Teflon in it. So much so that Teflon is now in everyone's DNA when blood has been extracted. So, you know, we all have carcinogenics in our DNA, unfortunately, these days. I'm not saying that that's great or a perfect world. It's just kind of like looking at the balance of, like, are we going to be able to prevent that chemical from getting into the land? No. So if we're not going to be able to prevent it, if we're not going to be able to prevent it from getting into us, then we might as well use it instead of making more. Yeah, so enjoy checking out how we got these things up here, and thanks for tuning in. I appreciate you all. Big shout out to Mr. Buchanan, who gifted us these railroad ties so we can make this happen. Take care.